Hey everyone, welcome back to the Flywheelpod. And this episode was a real good one with Barry Freed. Kit, what'd you think so far?
Man, I'm very impressed of his crypto journey and how he's learned and grew his Twitter following and actually do the due diligence. Like
Dude, it
it's
happened
good to
so
hear.
fast. He said that he first touched the chain in November of 2021, and now he's almost 8,000, I think more, like he has over 10,000 Twitter
Yeah.
followers. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you have massive output on threads, and not just like any threads, but like detailed threads that go into numbers and like what's actually happening on chain and like defining on what's happening with these protocols. Like it was a very dense interview, and we really got into the weeds of what's going on.
Yeah, man. He went deep finance and actually he did the homework. Like I'm very happy to see like, more of these like younger folks actually rolling up their
Yeah.
sleeves and getting down there and looking through like digging in the docs is the easiest thing someone can do, but not everybody do it.
It's literally that simple. Just dig into the docs. And he even said that he doesn't really, we asked him like, hey, like, is there anybody in particular that you followed? He was like, no, I just do this shit myself.
All me.
It's all me. It's all me. Yeah, no, and like, I feel like he doesn't do anything else but like study the chain and study the docs. Like he's not even
And
going
lift
to
weights.
college and lift weights. He literally just lifts and does DeFi.
Yeah, man.
This is what
I think
this is what we're up against in the future.
yeah, and
This is who I want to build
obviously,
with. Yeah.
he as I'm really curious to see, like, what's his next steps going to be like? Because I'd imagine he's not gonna be a threador forever. He's gonna have to
Right. Or,
hop into
yeah.
he's gonna be a builder. Like, I can already tell.
Yeah. Or
But
an
it's just a
analyst
matter of
or yeah.
where. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a lot in store for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us. I think we have almost 300 subscribers, 400 subscribers. I don't know. We keep on we're growing quick. So make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you follow us at Flywheelpod on Twitter as well as Telegram. You can find me on Twitter at DeFiDave22.
And you can find me at 0x capital underscore K.
And let's get this episode started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Flywheel. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, and I'm here with Capital K. And this week we have Mr. Barry Freed here. He's a DeFi threader who is absolutely relentless on the timeline. He'll make threads from everything about the curve wars to Frax to any if it's on chain, you know that Barry has it covered. And he's also a recent high school graduate, which makes it, which just shows how much it's the young man's game. So Barry, it is an honor to have you on. Like your output is incredible, and I'm really excited to have you as a guest.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, let's get right into it. Can you like tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into DeFi and living on chain and just keeping track of everything?
Yeah, so I honestly don't really know when it started. I kind of, I don't know, it was maybe 11th, 12th grade, kind of bored in school. So like, I kind of like wanted to pick something up. And like, I really, to be honest, I got in like Pico top March 2021. It wasn't very good. But at the time I really didn't know much what to do. So like, I'm like, if I'm going to stay in here, if I'm going to make money, I got to actually learn what's going on chain. And then like over time, I just became fascinated in flywheels, private economies, just like the whole essentially curve was my home. I felt like it was my home because it was like everything that I loved in one. And like there's so much game theory and flywheel. And I kind of just fell in love with like the whole bribe economy, flywheel, and how it all ultimately generates more revenue for all different protocols that interact and like different liquidity, and liquidity is basically king, and it all leads to more revenue, and then there's better UX for the people using the protocol. It just like all goes hand in hand, and that just like fell to me.
Cool. And so I guess like out of when you got in at the top of March 2021, and I feel like this is a very common occurrence with people that stay because, there's like a lot of stories of like some people that got in at the top, whether it was like then or in like 2017, 2018, or even like recently. And they basically have this moment of like this gut check of like now or never. Is like, okay, like if I want to actually be in this, like I better take this seriously and take a deep dive into it, which you did. And so what exactly about the whole Curve Frax ecosystem and like how everything works attracted to it as compared to, maybe like, synthetics is or like, Uniswaps or like Aave or like that part of DeFi or even like NFTs or even DAOs, like because I think it takes a certain person to be attracted to
Mhm.
Curve and like a certain person to get into it. And not only that, but a certain person to get it. So like what specifically about like the game theory? Is it like stuff that you've like kind of learned in the past and like other non-crypto rabbit holes that you gone down? Like what was it about Curve that really hooked you in?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm like very like big math numbers guy, and like that aspect of it kind of came in. I'm also a huge synthetics guy too. So
Yeah.
like,
Oh, me too.
uh, yeah. So like honestly, kind of felt like other token models and other systems were kind of not boring, but like Curve is more interesting. There's so many different parts to it, and I can like basically I like speculating too. So like I can I can like bridge stuff together and like create different things and just bring them. I don't know. It just kind of fell to me.
Yeah.
It's just more. It's a complex. I like the challenge. So
Yeah. How would you break down like how Curve works to the people at home? Like in
yeah.
your own words? Yeah.
Um. So there's battle for liquidity on chain and curve. The curve incentives are basically what provides extra incentives to people who provide liquidity. Protocols want more liquidity so they could have better UX and they can be traded more and they can be utilized more in DeFi. So there's this whole economy where people who lock up curve for VE curve or VLCVX as we get in later, they basically control all these emissions and protocols are the ones that want to direct emissions to their pools so they can gain more liquidity so they could the whole flywheel to happen. So this creates a whole bribe. So then convex comes along and creates a liquid V curve. So the revenue is basically 50% of trading fees that go on a curve go to LPers, and 50% go to V curve holder, the lockers. And Convex is like, hey, why don't we offer these V curve lockers, but like, why don't we offer a liquid version of V curve and basically pay them revenue plus extra CVX incentives plus protocol revenue, platform revenue in exchange for their voting power. And their boosts. Right. So then you also get the boost on top. I should have specified earlier. So then comics is like, yeah, why don't we create that? So that created huge demand because I don't know, curve, V curve was like yielding 40 to 50% yield back in the day. And people didn't want to lock for 4 years to get that max yield. So they created this demand. And then Convex took all that voting power, created CVX, VLCVX, which in turn created more VLCVX had more voting power per V CRV, which made the whole flywheel more. And protocols wanted to hold VLCVX over V curve because there was more voting power and you can incentivize your pool more. So then there became this whole bribe economy with Vodium, and basically protocols bribed with their native tokens or any tokens to for VLCVX holders lockers to basically vote for their pools and to direct curve emissions to their pools, which in turn also directed extra convex incentives on top of that. So as you can see, it created this whole economy where those who are trying to incentivize their pools had to go through this whole process, had to basically choose the most economical way to incentivize their pools. And that turned out to be the LCVX, which in turn created more revenue, created that whole flywheel and back to more revenue to V curve because there's more trading volume and and then like it all just repeats and goes in circles.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a pretty solid overview of it all. And how do you think Frax has executed its strategy within this whole Curve ecosystem?
Hmm. So, I mean, Brax has basically decided to take it's up till now, they had been selling their curve that they earned from farming as bribes, like for bribes. They would buy back FXS and then supply that as bribes. But then they also have the CVX that they would farm on top of that, which they would just keep on locking and just keep on accumulating more CVX so they could just earn more voting power and they can just vote for their pools. So now what's changed is we can get into the Frax base pool later and how they were basically selling their curve for bribes. Um, in order to incentivize their pools so they can get more utilization and more liquidity. And yeah, no, I think that was great. I mean, liquidity is king on chain. So you kind of, it's, and like when you're minting, Frax against the USDC in the pool, it just creates a perfect, I think it's great. And I think the Frax base pool, what's about to happen is going to change DeFi, change stablecoins forever. We can get
Yeah.
into that soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Capital K. What are you thinking right now about, kind of like Barry's overview and, just knowledge of the whole Curve ecosystem and Frax fits into it? What's on your mind right now?
Dude, I'm blown away that this guy said he started looking into crypto in 11th or 12th grade.
I'm blown
But
away. You looked into it in March or like in May at the
yeah,
top. I remember that Pico top, the dog top of it all. And I'm
yeah,
surprised
yeah.
I was thinking, I'm surprised you didn't get into like you didn't get wrapped up into the Olympus craze. Cause that whole time, that's when Olympus and its forks
True.
were popping off. Like, what were your
So
thoughts?
I did.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Oh, I think I think we all did.
Of course.
Yeah,
I was like, how can you be in crypto at that time without touching that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, of
I
course.
mean,
All the forks and alt chains, like it was just
mhm.
a disaster.
I mean, yeah. So I did have a question for you though, Barry. Like let's take a step back, all the way back. When you first got started, what were some of the tools or resources or educational materials that you used to kind of get you caught up to speed? Because I feel like the amount of time that you're able to get up to speed and get to the, really, really deep, nearly expert level, I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing your story and how you got here.
Oh, for sure. I'd say just going through, people underestimate just going through white papers and just trying to dissect it. I spent a lot of time on my threads. I spent a lot of time on basically looking into different protocols, and like I'll read different points of view, and I'll read like the mediums and like all the different breakdowns of all the different products of the protocol so I can understand it like 100%. But I guess to start, I'd say under starting with like what is a money market, what's an AMM, what's a like basically like basic DeFi terminology that you kind of need to know before you get into looking into different protocols, and then it becomes easier. And now I'm a huge proponent of using DeFi Llama. I think they're great.
Mm.
Hmm.
And they just came out with like a new update, you could say, where you can see like when something happened, like what caused
Yep.
XYZ to happen before. And I just it's great. I was never really huge into token terminal or I don't know, whatever other people use.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
Got it.
going down to the basics, try to understand it.
Were there like key people that kind of like led you along the way or key following on Twitter that you like to give a shout out to?
Hmm.
Barry's like, nah, all me.
It's all me.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Cue All Me by
I
Drake.
don't know. I really don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the
I
docs
use
are.
it nowadays. Like I've got a bunch of friends that like to talk about, do the same stuff that I do, like Haim Solomon.
Yeah,
Um,
I view as like a
a
young
bunch of
Haim in a sense, especially with
yeah,
all with the,
Yeah.
the thread output of you two is absurd. Like, it's hard for me to
Absurd.
sit down and write one thread or one article. Like, I just finished writing an article about the ETC for the Defiant, and it took me so much like mental energy to like sit down. And not only it's I think the hardest thing for me about writing things is it's not about like writing. It's easy for me to write content, but it's a matter of like cutting it down and like what are like the most important points and like what is my
oh
audience?
yeah,
What am I trying to get across? What are the most important points? So I keep people's attention, not waste their time, and as well as they learn something. I think that's something you do very well in your threads. Is like you get straight to the point and you include a lot of numbers and backup points to back up with what you're saying.
thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, that's kind of my style. I kind of want to break something down as much as I can without like going overboard in 40 to 50 tweets.
Yeah.
But like I just really a lot of people don't really look at the docs and the white papers.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like basically want to create a abridged version of that,
Yeah.
just completely abridged for that, so people can understand. And then for like protocols that are more in depth, I have to make more threads, you know, all the different products. Um, it's just like I just go with
Got
the
it.
flow, whatever I feel like, because like there's so many different aspects of so many different protocols. There's just too much content to cover. I don't know. I
It's
never run out of content.
I know. I mean, that's why we started this podcast, and we're going it from a Frax centric angle, and just from going
Mhm.
from the Frax centric angle, there's so much content. It's a little overwhelming a bit. It's just like, what direction do we want to go to Frax lane? Do we want to go to Frax ETH? Do we want to go to
Oh
Curve
yeah.
Wars? It's fascinating, like how deep you can go, and like the space moves so fast. Like there's always something new on the horizon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I guess something.
Exactly. So,
Go
mhm.
ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of switch back into talking about the Frax base pool because
Hmm.
remember how we said Curve is now no longer sold for kind of like
Yeah.
operating expenses. So where is Frax going to be generating, to make up for this revenue, essentially?
Right. So what's going to happen is per the proposal, so that curve that used to be sold is now going to be utilized and set. It's going to be split between VE curve,
Hmm.
locked as VE curve, to be used whatever to gain revenue to direct whatever voting power that it has. And then it would also be used to direct maybe traded or deposited as CVX curve and set as incentives to the base pools. So it says like up to 95%, but like that's just like rough estimates, and you basically choose that however much whatever's more economical. Um, so those CVX curve. So this creates a whole separate flywheel where CVX curve is now being sent to the meta pools as incentives. So number one, convex itself is going to help the peg. So when
Mm.
people aren't gonna so they're gonna swap or deposit depending on whatever's more efficient, because if it's trading at a discount, you're gonna swap.
Hmm.
But by creating constant buying pressure on the peg, it'll cause like a 1 to 1, like to keep peg essentially, and people to deposit into convex, convex, which creates more voting power per VLCBX
Hmm.
because there's more V curve being deposited as opposed to being swapped. So
Hmm.
as Frax as the largest CVX holders is just continuously gaining more voting power per CVX. So that's just a separate thing. And Convex right now, I think it's like 54% they control, and I'm sure
Hmm.
that this number is only I mean it can only go up, but it's gonna grow with this buying pressure on the peg. Um, anyway, back to the base pools. Now they're going to send these CVX curve as incentives to the protocols that pair based on TVL. So so now it creates this whole flywheel where, hey, you want to build as much TVL as possible so you can gain as much incentives as possible, so you can incentivize your pool, so you can get more LPers, so you can have better UX and more liquidity and etc. So, and also to note is Convex, they have CVX FXS power. Their
Hmm.
FXS VFXS voting power, which I think is 26%. That's going to be used and mirrored based on the curve gauge voting weights. So if the protocol has more edges, so how are they going to gain liquidity? They're going to bribe, or they're going to vote, or you're going to buy up curve and CVX and lock them, or they're going to bribe. Um, and then they get more, and then basically that FXS voting power is going to be used to mirror those votes and create more, and just take those FXS emissions that would be emitted from the voting power and emit them to those meta pools. So basically, you're just incentivized to build as much TVL as possible, so you can get as many incentives as possible.
Okay. Now,
It just
okay,
yeah,
let's break down that answer. That was a
breakdown.
very
Yeah,
dense answer. So,
Yeah.
the first part I want to break down is before. Okay, let's just roll it back to before when Frax would farm CRV, they would basically dump the CRV for revenue and then distribute that for their vote incentives bribes. Now, what Frax is going to do, it's going to partly stake the CRV as VECRV as their protocol, and now they're also going to stake up to 95% of it as CVX CRV. And you, instead of, dumping the CRV tokens, use that CVX CRV directly as the vote incentives for the meta pool. And that is, it's positive sum for all parties because Frax isn't dumping the CRV straight to market. It's staking it into CVX, which grows CVX's CRV holdings. And it's just like the alternative to like dumping. It's like you're sending the CVX CRV to promote liquidity, which is the most important thing when it comes to like anything on chain trading related, market related, into the Frax BP pools. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
100%.
yeah, and then there's another part. So like you mentioned something about VLCVX during that answer. Could you break down like what you meant, like what exactly you meant by the VLCVX? Like,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So convex finance
Mhm.
controls when people deposit their V curve as CVX to CVX curve. Convex takes that voting power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So convex gives us that voting power to the CVX token holder, the VLCVX token holders, aka
Okay.
the people that lock their CVX for 4 months, and they have that voting power, and that creates a whole bribe ecosystem
Oh,
because
okay. So
of what
Yeah.
I understand this. So basically, when like the trade off is if anybody like puts their CRV and stakes it as CVX CRV, they give up their voting power in exchange for a liquid token, and that voting power is then
forever.
passed forever, and that voting power is passed along to VLCVX holders, people that stake their CVX for VLCVX, and now they have the
Yeah,
voting power over the CRV, over the curve protocol. And like basically the more that they stake, the more voting power there is. And Frax being the largest holder of CVX, that just adds to, kind of like their stake in it
just
all.
adds to the voting
It
power
adds to the voting power and all. Okay, so this is where we see the this is what you meant where it adds like another layer to the flywheel. Another flywheel like
exactly.
meta layer is like it's just a way to like another, basically the stream of CRV, which before was just going in the open market. It wasn't being utilized in any way to add to the flywheel. Now you have this whole new, like, it's like you're building a dam, and you're creating like a new path for a river to form. Instead of just like letting the water be wasted, it's just like going in this new way. Yeah, that's how I think of it. It's, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it
exactly right.
creates an extra. Not only does it create more, like, not only does it incentivize the meta pools to build TVL, it increases the voting power for convex per
Yeah,
CVX token, which
exactly.
was yeah,
It's
it's a
basically,
double.
instead of like the CVS, it's basically optimizes the flywheel more, because instead of like the CRV just going the open market wasted. But what I meant by like river being diverted, it's like a very intentional way to divert a river when creating like a whole, like an irrigation,
Yeah,
not a dam, an irrigation system. I think an
an
irrigation system
irrigation.
is a better synonym for dam.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like, yes, we all have established where the CRV is going to be going and how productive it's now is. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it's still taking away from Frax's income, right? Now
Right.
it's being redirected and given back into the community. Fraxes get more TVL, aka liquidity, on their Frax base pool pairs. But at the end of the
Right.
day, that income is now off of the sheet. Like it's no longer
Yeah.
flowing
So that
onto the treasury. So how does Frax make up for that shortfall?
right. So at the moment, I'm pretty sure they're going to utilize their Treasury FXS as extra incentives as well. So they're going to have the CVX curve, they're going to have the FXS, their Treasury FXS, and then they're going to have the convex mirroring the FXS as well. So I kind of think of this type of, like, right now is basically the bootstrapping system right now.
Mhm.
There's not, like, I wouldn't I'm not like short term FXS is sort of gonna be utilized to boot. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the main goal for Frax and Frax base pools is to build as much liquidity and have as much, basically, vampire attack, you could say, from the three pools, and take as
Mhm.
much away and bring it. So like that's gonna cost incentives. So
Yeah.
I kind of think of this as a boosting system.
So right now it's the
So,
bootstrap. Yeah, go ahead, Kent.
sorry, Dave, one sec. So the way I kind of answered that question for myself is like before the Frax base pool, Frax was in this test and scale phase where they were putting their AMO, specifically the curve AMO, to the test. And then through this phase, they were actually, net profitable because of the
Right.
CRB and the CVX, and now they figured out the flywheel and they've gone to the stage where they're at. Now, after the Frax base pool, they've transitioned over to like pure growth and scale, right?
Yeah.
Because they did the testing with AMO. They know this bad boy can handle over 1.8 billion like in TVL. So now on this side, they're like, okay, let's forgo profitability. We're in growth mode right now. Let's acquire as much liquidity as possible against the Frax base pool. That is kind of the way
One,
I'm categorizing it in my mind.
yeah, 100%. And I think where most people don't realize that, like, yeah, we're in a bear market, but bear market means more people in stables. Stables are always the last resort in the market. So I kind of see now it's a great time to do it, in my opinion.
That was a great time to start bootstrapping because more people are in
Yeah.
stables anyway. I would say like a counter to that though is, on a macro scale, we see rates going up and there's actually more attractive yield opportunities off chain. And it's actually like, if I'm like a more
Mhm.
sophisticated investor, I'd rather go take my Tether USDC off chain and go put it in some treasuries like, somewhere
Yeah.
else. So I guess like, what would be your response to that?
No, you're right. But I don't know. I kind of see like people aren't going to really bring their money off chain. Like there's a lot of money just sitting on Aave and
Yeah,
Compound,
that's true.
just waiting.
Just waiting to be deployed.
Uh, it's kind of annoying and clunky to go off chain and earn an extra, I don't know, 0.5% yield, even less.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Barring there's a ton of on chain risks, but if you play it right, I still see stables as the last resort in DeFi, no matter what.
It's the base layer for sure.
It's a base layer,
Yeah.
yeah.
And now with the Frax base pools, I guess like something else you're saying in your answer is I guess
Yeah.
some about different protocols like being hooking up with the Frax base pool and like directing incentives to the Frax base pool. Like, how do you imagine like how do you see protocols partnering stablecoins partnering with the Frax base pool, and like how do you see them playing out for like, oh, we want more yield to our Frax base pool, or like, oh no, we want more to this Frax base pool. Like, how do you see that playing out?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I really don't see. I think it's like there's no reason why protocols shouldn't pair with Frax base pool. I mean, you're basically earning their Frax will literally become like the base layer for all these stable coins. It will become the base layer for the stable coins where they're going to say, hey, you're going to provide incentive. We're going to provide incentives. You're going to attract LPers. You're going to build that up. You're going to attract LPers. And then you're going to build more revenue and to build more revenue for everyone. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. And I really, so like, let's take SUSD synthetics, for example. Um, they have like tons of volume daily. I'm not sure how much, but what I'm saying is they can, if they pair with the Frax base pool, they're going to provide they're going to have more incentives. Uh, they're going to have more incentives for their SUSD minters. And those minters are now going to move over to that curve pool, create more liquidity there, and just create a better situation overall, better UX. I guess a better example would be like a protocol that would actually bribe or like I don't know, Alchemix or something like that. But you're just earning extra incentives on top of what you're bribing. And if you bribe and build more TVL, then like it's a win-win-win because you're getting all these incentives on top of that. You're building liquidity on top. You're building liquidity on top of your original investment. So it's like a win-win-win.
Mm.
And in turn, yeah, sorry. And in turn, Frax will just become the base layer for all these protocols because all these protocols are pairing with them, which will result in more utilization, more volume for Frax, which results in more fees back to the VFXS holders,
Mm. I think the important thing
which
you're
is
saying,
kind of Chris.
it is great. The most important thing you're saying is Frax is the base layer. It's, Frax is
Yeah,
fulfilling its destiny of becoming the central bank of DeFi and the central
yeah,
bank of life on chain. And like, it's becoming, everything, like all roads lead back to Frax in a sense, in that manner.
exactly.
Yeah. Um,
Especially on Curve.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially on Curve. Which gets into my next point. I saw a thread released today, comparing Curve with Uniswap V3 and kind of the pros and
Oh yeah.
cons of both. I'm sorry
hmm
you saw that thread as well. I am definitely a little bit of a like I've studied Uniswap V3, especially in my old
Yeah.
position at Gelato, and like I understand it, and I definitely like I respect their system and like what they built, and I'm curious like what your take on Curve versus Uniswap V3 as like AMMs and as options as both liquidity providers
Right.
and as traders.
So the actual architecture of the curve AMM sort of goes. So there's the traditional X times Y equals K formula,
Hmm.
which is inefficient for stables because you're basically trading based on that curve. So curve, what they did is they basically created an A factor where that scales. It becomes more the base layer. The curve becomes flatter and flatter based on how deep how high the A factor is, and this will scale based on liquidity, trust, and trust in a stable coin, or vice versa. Like you'll if you have like a if you have like a basically everyone deems it as a safe stable coin, they will they will create a high A factor, which means it's harder to move it off peg, and like it becomes like better slippage swaps, like much lower slippage swaps. So it really just depends on the stable at hand. And it also like take away from it. So if like we take USDC, they had some FUD recently. So they had an A factor of 5,000, which was extremely high. And they lowered that to 2,000 because you can like you're just going to artificially peg an asset if you keep it that high. So that's it. I find that system extremely efficient. Pricing essentially pricing stables what they're supposed to be and creating the best UX possible based on how efficient they actually are. Uni V3, I'm also a fan of concentrated liquidity, but it's much more efficient for non-stable. I actually don't know that much about Curve V2, but basically what the guy was saying was Curve is better for synthetics. Um, Uni V3 is better for non-stable assets and just like long tail assets. Some long tail assets, and it was about 50-50 on stables. So from the stables point of view, I say, hey, Frax is going to completely obliterate Uni V3 with, sorry, Curve is going to obliterate Uni V3 with all these extras, with all this extra liquidity flowing
Yeah.
onto Curve. So sure, Uni V3 is probably better. So I don't know Curve V2 enough to know any. I'll probably look into it this week, but
Yeah.
for the in the stable point of view, I mean, more liquidity is more utilization, better. So I kind of think of this Frax baseball is going to create more. It's a win-win for everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like the name of the game,
A
essentially.
positive,
Yeah.
positive some flywheel for everyone.
hmm
And I kind
Yeah,
of view Curve for AMMs like it's meant for passive liquidity. Like there'll be a lot of days where like fees are low, and then all of a sudden you'll see like boom, it's like
yeah,
it's like 3-4 million in a day or something like that. And then like with Uniswap B3, especially like if you supply liquidity on Uniswap B3, you have the right volatile pair at the right time. You can really stack up a lot of fees in a short amount of time. So it's different AMMs for different purposes. And I don't think one
yeah.
is better than the other necessarily, but some may be better for like certain purposes or certain pairs.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
I
I need more.
yeah. I was gonna
Curve.
wait. What were you gonna say, Barry?
I need to look into Curve V2
Yeah.
more
One thing I wanted
or
to
see.
like plug in is like I think on Uniswap B3 you're gonna see a lot more managers built on top of it, whether it's
Yeah,
whether it's a G Uni, which is turning to Arrakis,
correct.
or Gamma strategies or something like, especially Arrakis. I'm probably most excited for them because like I was talking to their team this week. I am an advisor to Arrakis. It's like my boys at Gelato.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's really cool seeing like what they've built and like how far it's come because like
Oh yeah.
Arrakis like gained all most of its TVL, like the billion TVL was doing the DAI USDC pair on
Yeah.
V3, which the G Uni DAI USDC pair, which was on Maker, you could like basically lever up 20x or 50x, and that
PSM.
yeah, they on the
Right.
PSM, it was like really cool to see. And now
The PSM.
they're like really like shifting Arrakis to become a decentralized market maker of sorts. And I won't give anything away, but they have a lot of cool things in store for like when they like launch their product fully. I think it's really going to change the game for liquidity on Uniswap
Sounds
B3.
great.
Yeah.
But sounds
Yeah.
exciting.
like after hearing all this like Frax BP talk, like I was imagining, and I want to get your guys' take on this, see if this is possible. could you imagine a future where people actually purchase FXS to then lock up VEFXS to essentially use that governance power to direct not only the VLCVX votes, not only the VEFXS votes, but also the VECRV votes. So by holding
Yeah,
VEFXS, you can manage essentially all those gauges,
for sure.
Yeah,
right?
it's like Frax is
Um,
becoming a meta token, or Frax shares is becoming like a meta governance token in that regard.
yeah.
Correct. So you know how
What?
everybody had the narrative of like convex is like the meta governance, but I feel like Frax is on top of that. Frax is like the meta governance.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what I would say is that it could work. Me and Charlie pitched. We were talking about this. We The only problem is like we thought it was a great idea, but the only problem is like convex controls 26% of VFXS
Hmm.
power. So I don't know how that would work because they're obviously going to incentivize the pools that attain to them like that. So there's a lot. I would be a fan of that, but convex is kind of in the way, you could say, by controlling that voting power. But yeah, I don't
in a
know.
sense, you can think of like all these protocols are a check to each other, checks and balances. Like Frax, the protocol holds a bunch of CBX and soon to be like CRV. Convex holds a bunch of CRV and FXS. It's like they definitely all check each other, and that's why I like calling them kind of like a confederation or multicellular organism where they all like have to work
Oh yeah,
with each other for each other's benefits. Like they're all basically ride or die together.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. And
for sure.
yeah, another thing I wanted to get into was we were talking about like, okay, now that Frax is not dumping their CRV anymore, and they're gonna have to like look for other places of revenue. Something I would love to pick both of your brains about is I'm like really coming around to the idea of Frax ETH becoming like the base layer of revenue for the Frax protocol. And I say that you know, especially now with like the merge coming up, like that's gonna be like the source of like organic on-chain yield.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And like soon, I guarantee you, I just tweeted this yesterday. Like, I guarantee you, like in like 3 to 6 months, just as like every protocol came out with their own VE system or protocols are creating their own AMM, you're gonna have every protocol come out with like, oh, we're gonna have our own like node as a service. Oh, we're gonna build like our own like each staking nodes and utilize their treasuries,
yeah, no, yeah, for
whether
sure.
it's like them taking, hey, they could take a loan out on Fraxland to like get ETH and then like use that as like
Yeah,
staking or like just like sell like the treasury assets to like set up nodes themselves. And I see Frax as like the massive treasury that they have. They can basically leverage that to get a bunch of ETH, set up these nodes, and go and like use that as like the base layer, whether it's like 5% or 10% or 15% of yield. And I was actually having like a really good conversation with my friend Christian the other day, and we were talking about like potential AMOs, and like from this you can like create with like a backstop of this like Frax ETH AMO. You can create more like degen AMOs that go out to seek more aggressive strategies. And then if like the strategy like is supposed to get 20% yield or like 10% yield, and if it doesn't cut it, let's say only gets like 8% or 5%, you can basically scrap the AMO and then like have it like all like the funds in the AMO go towards back Frax ETH. So I think like Frax ETH, like, and that's like the thing I'm like really excited for coming up next, especially with the merge coming. I guess like what are your guys' thoughts on like Frax ETH and like potential AMOs coming out of that?
you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
So no, I think you're definitely right. I think Frax is a trendsetter. They're gonna start a trend. I think there's gonna be a lot more protocols that are creating their own AMO or their own
Nodes.
node as a service.
Yeah.
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 So
And Frax already has two nodes
yeah,
up.
I think
Yeah. Go ahead.
right. It's two.
Yeah.
They have two nodes up.
They have two nodes up right now. I think if they want, I'm sure if they wanted to, they could scale up more. They're just being like just
Yeah.
careful and intentful about it. And I think something you said that's important is like Frax is saying the trend. Frax set the trend when it came to convex. They were the first ones to recognize, oh
Oh
shit,
yeah.
like this is like gonna be the next metagame is like convex. Like let's stack up convex tokens immediately. I think they farmed it from the start. And you see it pay dividends, no pun intended, right now. And
Yeah.
so now like you see right now again, like Frax is like, I remember when Sam first said the idea of Frax ETH, it was at the first Fraxmoist meetup in Amsterdam back in April. I got like 15 Fraxmoists, 15 like people that hold Frax in a room. we all kind of like sat in a circle, but kind of like kumbaya, saying like what we saw about Frax, what we like really liked about Frax, and like why we're all here. You got a sense of like the. I remember. I'll never forget. Well, I think it was like DeFi DJ, and he said to us like, "This is what happens when you get like 15 stable heads in a room with the power of weaponized autism. Like you get this moment right here."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But like, I remember like I actually got Sam on FaceTime to make an appearance, and the alpha that he leaked back in April was like, yeah, like we realized like one of the things we can do with like all the kind of like the stable mechanisms we like created is we don't even have to, we not only like help keep Frax stable, but we can like create like a Frax ETH pool and make like a liquid Frax ETH token, like in the same way of there being Lido.
Like,
Dude, like,
are you,
so
like you said,
Wait, what? Go.
go.
I just want to
No,
take a quick take here
Yeah, go ahead.
on the Frax ETH. Remember when Aave finally allowed for you to collateralize Steph and borrow against it?
Mhm.
Like that
Yeah.
just really picked up the whole derivatives staking market for Steph, right? Frax would come with that natively
Yeah.
with Frax Lend, right? Like
Yep.
you would be able to borrow on your Frax ETH stake derivative day one. You don't have to wait. There's nothing that you need to do. You could immediately get liquidity on top of it. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
I love the way they're systematically building out all of these different spokes on the flywheel so that once it turns on, it just can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like as Drake said in our last interview, Frax is building these money Legos, these native money Legos for themselves because they needed themselves because they're not out there. And then whether it's Frax Land or Frax Swap, and then they were like, oh, like why don't we release it as public good of sorts to the public? Like right now, like Frax Land when it's released, it's gonna have no fees whatsoever, which is crazy to think about. And it's not, and it's definitely in its own lane. It's not trying to compete with like Aave or Compound. It's trying to be the best I can be at term sheet lending and like setting up these like different like DAO to DAO lending agreements.
Yeah. Through Frax Swap, right?
Frax Lend.
Right.
Yeah. And but
Right. Yeah.
and
they would utilize Frax Swap to do like T-WAP trades or whatever. T-WAP AMM trades.
T-WAM. Yeah. So like that was the next one. I was gonna, that was the next question I want to get into is Frax Swap because you're definitely an AMM aficionado. So like, what are your thoughts on Frax Swap and you know the whole concept of a T-WAM? Like, what's your take on Frax Swap and everything?
I mean, it's a great system. You could basically streamline. You could. It just, I don't know. It just creates like a whole. It's another money Lego.
It's another money.
Create it. You could buy it. It's another Lego. So you could streamline a buy over a couple weeks. Well, I mean, it's a great system. I see a lot of different protocols also launching different TWAM. I can't. How do you pronounce?
I say
that?
T-WAM.
I like
T-WAM.
it. T-WAM.
Team Wham.
Yeah.
Team Bam.
Yeah, I know for sure. I think there's definitely a purpose.
Yeah.
I think it's not as prominent as it should be at the moment, especially given current market conditions.
I think
people just don't know how to use it and don't I don't know.
Or they might not know that it exists. And right now, Frax Swap it's in its V1 right now, so it's limited in pairs. But in V2, it's gonna open up to like any pair. So and I think it'll be like more relevant, as you know, especially like DAOs. Look, you know, you actually just saw with Lido today, they just rejected Dragonfly. Dragonfly wanted to buy a large set of their tokens for I think like $1.45, and the Lido DAO said no. And they could only, and like the reason why this was being considered at all is because if they wanted to trade in size at all, they had to do an OTC deal like this to a fund. In the future, there could be a Lido Frax pair, and they could just trade into that over a long period of time on Frax Swap. Yeah. And so like that's where like I think like the need for a T-WAM is there. It's just a matter of protocols coming around to it. Just as like everybody came around to like, oh, Convex over time, just as everyone came around to VE systems over time. But personally, I think VE systems are like meant for like certain protocols. Not every protocol should adopted, but like it's cool to see everyone hopping on that trend. I think over time, people are like going to come around to both ETH staking nodes and ETH, and also come around to T-WAMs. And once again, Frax is just
100%.
ahead of the curve.
I kind of think like it's more like from a down to down perspective. Like whenever someone's OTCing, you could instead of OTC, I guess you could streamline just with the T-WAM,
hmm
I
Yes,
guess,
that's the
or
idea.
like
I like to call it
right, right,
I like to call T-WAMs DCA machines.
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's the easiest. Like people are probably listening, like, what the fuck is a T-WAM? Like that's like, no, it's a
go.
Yeah.
DCA machine. Just like, oh, okay.
No, that definitely helps. I can't. I was like T-WAM.
Time
I don't know. I don't know
time
if I
weighted automated market
time weighted automated
arrangement,
market making
DCA.
that.
For viewers at home that might not know what DCA stands for, dollar cost averaging. So instead of buying a lot at once, you buy like a little bit, like once a day or once a week. And that's what DCAing is for the viewers at home. And so like Frax swap as a T-WAM is a DCA machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get you guys' thoughts on this one. Do you think the bull case is for Frax to, or the stablecoin Frax to be paired with everything, or is it the Frax base pool to be paired with everything?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I
But you go ahead, Barry.
I'm get. I mean, I think they kind of go hand in hand, but I I think it's just creating the base pool, and creating that layer, and the like more protocols are going to pair with you, the more liquidity you have in the base pool. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think Frax base pool and Frax can be used for different purposes. I mean, with
Yeah,
Frax base pool, if I'm a stable, I'm going to pair with the base pool. Like that's, that makes sense without question. With Frax, I think for Frax swap, especially with like the T-WAM, if I'm a DAO and I'm looking, to be able to have like deep liquidity for both myself and my token holders, I much rather use Frax swap and pair with Frax itself. And also, it's not just about like trading; it's also about holding. Like, what do I want to hold in my treasury? And I think
Right.
that's where FPI
right.
comes in. And like, if I'm a DAO and I'm looking for an inflation-resistant hedge on market conditions, it's in my interest to
Yeah,
hold FPI. And I think like, the name of the game is to increase your denomination, whether it's like through like loans or whether it's through like liquidity and curve pools, or whether it's like just holding it or even like just spending it. Like, maybe like it'd be cool to see like more places I can like spend my Frax or like use Frax on chain. That's really the name of the game. I think like I think the goal for Frax is to like build all of these different primitives and all these different options, and then
right.
to elegantly weave them together in this beautiful system where I can just have like basically like financial ecosystem as a service. It's like, oh, I can like go spend my Frax here. I can get a loan from here. I can exchange my Frax there. If I'm like looking to go to another stable, I can go to Curve. Like, or, I think that's the goal over time. I think like what the Frax team has in mind is like, they're in this, like, as Barry said earlier, like we're in this bootstrapping phase. And like, once we're like out of this bootstrapping phase, you're going to see all the different parts of the Frax ecosystem, whether it's like the Frax base pool, whether it's Fraxland, whether it's Frax swap, whether it's FPI, like all it like just seamlessly weave into each other to create like the most capital efficient system the capital efficient stablecoin economy that there is.
Yeah, and like the whole base pool is only one aspect of
It's
it.
just one.
That's the
Yeah, it's
so,
yeah. It was crazy. It's just one part of it. But yeah, go ahead, Barry.
yeah. No, so you could say like the ultimate goal is to pair with every asset, but also there's Fraxlend, there's Frax Swap, there's all these other AMOs that you're also dealing with. So I mean,
Yeah,
there's also FPI. So
yeah,
there's so many different aspects to Frax and the Curve AMO with every stable pairing with Frax is just one of them.
yeah. And with every
Yeah, I
go
mean,
ahead. Yeah,
I actually want to take the other side of this, and I'm going to say that the Frax base pool LP token should
Yeah.
be the de facto stable in a DAO's treasury. Like if they're holding USDC, like all the USDC holdings are now Frax base pool LP tokens. I think that is like when you want to proliferate the Frax base pool so much that it becomes
Yeah.
like the de facto pair.
Treasury.
Like it is a stable. Like people treat the Frax base pool LP token as a stable. Then that
yeah,
could be
Yeah.
paired with anything else, you know. I know it's difficult to have an LP token as like, to pair it against something because of the accounting and the math that goes on in that.
Well, could you
But
create like a wrapped LP token?
I'm sure like how
Yeah.
there's geom,
It's
Yeah.
like
so
Yeah.
ERC-466.
Oh yeah, just
like
imagine you
Wheel.
create
yeah.
like a wrapped like Frax baseball token, and that would be awesome to use as like a yield bearing asset in Fraxland or wherever.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So that's the way like I envisioned it. Like that is the bull cases where you see USDC's market cap, you take that and then you times it by 2, and that's the Frax base pool. And then
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
eats it and that just holds it.
I think
Like I think that
yeah.
is like the bull case.
And this plays actually into, I'm not sure if you guys saw yesterday, Cointelegraph released an article where they interviewed Sam, because Sam, the founder of Frax, and he basically says like
Yeah.
it's in every stablecoin's interest right now to have this positive sum mindset and work together. Like we're still in this like very like early kind of like nascent stage of DeFi and stablecoins in general. Like there's no need to be like cutthroat and competitive. Like, it's better if we all work together, whether it's like the Frax stables pairing with the Frax base pool, or even like you just see right there, like the Frax base pool as like a wrap for 4626 vault would be a super stable. It would be like a super stable coin.
That's
And
super stable.
super
I
stable.
like that.
Yeah. And like that's just like Frax and USDC working together. It's just like, this like meta base pool for, imagine if you could like use that as currency, like have that in DAO treasuries. It's like, oh shit, like everybody's gonna need that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I guess like I wanted,
And then
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was like, Barry, and I guess it's a question for both of you. What do you guys think of like what do you guys have in mind for like future Frax yield strategies on chain? Like I saw yesterday Umami just came out with they're coming out with their delta neutral USDC strategy with GMX, and also like using Tracer DAO as well to create this like basically it's like delta neutral risk free way to like earn yield. Like have you guys thought about Frax yield strategies on chain? And if you have, like, what would you imagine to be one?
So you're saying like create an AMO, you could say
Yeah.
for other strategies,
I'm not necessarily saying AMO, although it could be
or just like
AMO,
a yield
just general
strategy.
yield strategies. It could be, honestly, one of these yield strategies can become an AMO.
Right.
But yeah,
Hmm. I mean, yeah, Umami Vault would be great.
mhm.
They're actually coming out with a lot of different vaults, which is like down the line. Maybe Frax would be part. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
cool to see one.
yeah, it would be cool. Um, yeah, maybe we
I
could
mean,
utilize some other treasury, other maybe like a regular GMX or whatever, any token that's like generating real yield can be utilized just to streamline rewards back to VFXS holders.
Yeah, I guess.
So
Yeah, I guess I would.
it's like the real yield is the new trend,
Yeah,
you know?
I love that meme. I guess like Frax would right now. I believe the Frax allocation within the GLP token is 2%. If you up that to like 10% or 20%, it'd be a lot easier to build a strategy around that.
Right.
Even yeah,
like I just wanted to add here, like the way I kind of see wow, my mind's brain farted. Dave, what was your question again?
what are some yield strategies you see for Frax?
Yield strategy.
Yeah,
Yes. So I feel like that was the last money Lego that needs to be added in, is some kind of yearn like um management, yield management, right? Like I feel once all these different legs of Frax Lend, Frax ETH, Frax Swap, like all the Frax space pools, like everything, now there needs to exist some kind of, like you said, the yield strategy, but ideally it'll act like how Yearn does, completely decentralized. People with strategies come to the Frax DAO, presents it. Hey, this is how we're going to manage it. Do pilot programs and have like all these emerging managers to manage some of the Frax, whether it be the Frax on the the DAO treasury, or from other random Frax holders who are willing to experiment. And then they would utilize all of Frax's money Lego to generate yield. And it can obviously be paired with things from Radiant all the way down to even GMX with GLPs if that thing starts opening up. like literally every yield strategy that is in DeFi would come onto Frax and
Are,
have Frax integrated in some
are you
way.
suggesting that people like potential yield strategists go and propose their own AMOs to the Frax DAO?
Exactly.
Okay. Ooh,
Exactly. It'd be like
So,
AMO as a
service.
service kind
Yeah.
of
And
deal.
I've been seeing Radiant a lot more. What is Radiant?
so
Barry,
it's
you
an
want to take that one?
money market. They've actually been going like they've had like a bit of FUD, some tornado cash stuff going on, Sifu involved. So they've denied their
How does it
claims,
keep
but
getting away with it?
I'm
I'm just kidding.
no, yeah,
Ooh.
it's basically an omni-chain money market. So
Oh, okay.
you can basically more on that. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, and they're offering like extremely high liquidity mining incentives now because they just launched.
Yeah. I would love to see, go back to
God.
what you're saying, Kit. Like, I would love to see more like AMO strategies deployed. I think like right now, especially like over the past few months, like Frax was being a lot more conservative, especially in the face of what happened with
Mhm.
Rory, in the face of like a market drawdown. Like,
Yeah,
you definitely want to like put a halt to that and reevaluate, okay, like, let's like get back to like a position where we're safe and comfortable before we deploy more. But like, I could see that it would be awesome if the protocol develops a streamlined system for potential strategists to come in, suggest their AMOs. Maybe like we can incentivize them where they take like a cut of the AMO while like revenue goes back to VEFXS holders. And we have this like, that'd be like really cool to see. And if like,
that would be
and
really
then
cool.
like, as I said earlier, if like the strategy, if they like say like, hey, we guarantee like this yield, if they don't like get like that percentage of yield over the point of like a month or 2 months, then the AMO just like automatically turns off. Or if the or if
Yep.
there's like certain like safeguards to it, like if it's like too dangerous of a strategy, like we can vote to have an emergency shutdown of the AMO. Like that would be really cool to see. One AMO. I guess. What do you guys think about that?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
no,
Barry.
I definitely think that's really cool. Are you saying like protocols can come to Frax and maybe utilize the Frax ecosystem to generate some sort of yield for them? Like
It
maybe
yeah. It
like
doesn't
any
even necessarily have to be the Frax ecosystem.
doesn't have to be
It can be the Frax ecosystem. It's any yield strategy that utilizes Frax.
any yield
Yeah,
strategy.
so like a protocol can like go in
Ah,
and like use their like existing assets in their treasury to basically generate a Frax-led loan to mint
right.
Frax, and then that Frax can go and like to maybe like curve or convex and generate yield that way. Um,
Yeah.
that's just like one example. Like that's one clear example, or a future umami vote if that happens. Or like there's gonna be so many. I think like I said, that's something like that's been really sticking with me, which I echoed earlier. Is like the yield. We should just like focus on yield opportunities on chain and like get maximizing that over maximizing that over like let's say like real world assets, because that's a lot easier to do. Like real world assets will still be a thing. It'll be important to connect them, but I think they're like a little bit away. There's just like it's a lot of friction, as you said earlier, Barry. Like even
Yeah.
going like stables on chain to off chain, there is some friction there. So like I meant like the friction for like real world assets is even more so. Like I guess like something I was also thinking about is like I'd love to see an investor AMO using the USDC collateral in the Umami vault. I think that's just like a no brainer. Honestly, I'm thinking about as I like think about more, that'd be a good proposal.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a no brainer to like put it in the Umami vault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Y-
Yeah.
I'm just looking at Yearn right now because no one ever talks about Yearn anymore.
I was actually looking at them
But
today too.
if but
Last week.
if Frax is like coming in and for lack of a better word, eating up Curve and Convex, I wonder why don't they come over and try to eat up Yearn as well and take over yield strategy management
I'm
and
not.
then kind of have that automated.
Is it worth it?
So I, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't
What
know,
is the what
brainstorming.
is revenue?
Yeah.
But
Because then I'm looking at it and I see a lot of the pairs are on Curve, right? And theoretically, if Frax base pool becomes the de facto meta pool and base pool to everything on Curve, like you
right.
can kind of envision a future where all these vaults that are living on Yearn finances actually say, SUSD against Frax base pool, SBTC against Frax base pool, Curve ALUSD against Frax base pool.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
So over time, it'll all be against Frax base pool.
Oh, yeah, I guess
And if
that would be interesting.
yeah,
I'm assuming do you think they would do you think they would like integrate that already?
I mean,
Like
if I were a Frax, if I held Frax the stable coin,
right.
remember how Anchor grew to the size it did because it was a super simple park it here, forget about it,
Forget about it.
and
Yeah,
set it and forget it. So then Frax doesn't have that, right? And I think Sam, our god tier producer, has said this many times. Like there needs to be some kind of just very simple UI where you can just park your Frax like a savings account, and then you can choose like whichever level of risk you prefer. Like you want low, medium, YOLO. Like
Somebody come
you
out
just
with
set it and forget it.
Frax Save, the
Right,
new
so
Yeah,
yield product, or like maybe like
yeah,
another existing entity within the Frax ecosystem. Like I can imagine Pitch doing something like that.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
or you
Whichever.
can like you can basically create like like strategies. You can take LP tokens on Curve and utilize them in Frax Lend and borrow against like and just like deposit that as collateral and earn an extra whatever percentage. Yeah, no, there's definitely a market for that. You're definitely right.
Yeah,
Just like yeah,
or even like Uniswap V3 freeze.
Yeah.
Like, I mean that's definitely a little bit riskier market making volatile pairs on Uniswap V3, but Um, or you can have like a Frax CD of sorts where like you commit to lock up your Frax for like 3 months or 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And like that Frax is just deployed in either Curve or possibly Umami or possibly Uniswap B3. But Uniswap V3 would be tricky with the volatile pairs because most of them don't work out. Maybe like put it in Arrakis Finance or
right.
something, or in like Gamma Strategies or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
There's also a LP. There's a UniV3 auto compounder called Revert
Oh,
Finance
what's that?
that just came out.
What's Revert?
It's just an LP auto compounder. It just auto compounds your fees a couple times a day, depending on what network you are. More, it's like gas based on the gas fees. It'll auto compound more.
Oh,
It's just like a traditional auto compounder.
Oh, okay. So it's like
Got
it
it.
kind of turns into V2 again. I personally like, I mean, for me personally, I personally like stacking up the fees on Uniswap V3. I just like interacting with it like just straight up as it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like I'd rather, because there's so many times that you like auto compound into the position, but then you get wrecked by impermanent loss. At least when you collect, at least when you collect the fees, you're kind of like, like locking in that gain. Well, like
Yeah.
depending on like which token you denominate it in. Um, yeah.
right. And it's also not necessarily a set and forget because you can still go out of range
Yeah,
from
that's
like your liquidity unless it's like yeah.
Have
So
you guys put in liquidity in Uniswap V3 before? Yes or no?
no, I
Yes.
have not
Yeah.
actually.
A
No.
lot.
Kid, what is your experience with Uniswap V3?
Um, man, as a trader, you kind of love it, right?
No, yeah.
Because all these just in time MEVs would come in and give you that liquidity for that moment when you execute the trade.
Yeah.
But as an LPer, it's a pain in the ass, to be completely frank. It's just difficult for you to kind of set the band and just walk away. You really do have to actively manage it. And the tighter your band, the more concentrated your liquidity, the more concentrated your IL, but
Right.
also your highest fees. So, we did this thing where we put all the liquidity in one tick, which is like one of the bands. And then as it wicks over, we would move the liquidity band kind of chasing the price range. And on a good day, it's amazing. Like on a good day, if you annualize that APY,
Yeah.
we're hitting like, 400%. But on a bad day, which is when it kind of wicks downwards, it bleeds you
Yeah, man.
so hard. Cause like I
It,
said, concentrated liquidity equals concentrated IL.
it's super
Oh
reflexive.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the gains are up, but like the losses are that much more down. And then also you
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of like the value prop of Arrakis. You can kind of just set and forget it.
yeah.
So
Arrakis would be really cool, like especially how they're thinking
yeah.
about managing liquidity. But in terms of Uniswap V3, at ETHCC I saw a talk with Dan Robinson, and he basically like made the
Mhm.
case of like why just-in-time liquidity isn't as bad as people think. And he was saying like, oh, it's only accounts for like 1% of like all trades, and like if it does, like it's actually like it's kind of the opposite of a sandwich attack. Instead of like fucking over traders, it just provides more liquidity for them, and
Yeah.
but it only provides liquidity for
Uh-huh.
them if the opportunity is relevant. If the opportunity just only if it
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
It's great for traders, bad for LPers. No matter, even if it's a small percent, right? Like you, you didn't take any risk or rather your risk is much lower than the person just passively LPing. But if you're already LPing into Uniswap V3 pool, you kind of signed up for it.
Yeah.
You know,
You better
Right.
know what
that's
you're
kind of
getting
the way I
into.
think it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
There was
that's
a
what I love
pop
about. It was
Go,
one
go.
last. That's what I love about these like kind of DeFi Lego blocks, and they literally have a menu of all the entrees you want based on your risk
So,
assessment and what your profile is. There's a meal kit combo for you. You know, that's kind of what I love about it.
yeah. There was actually Popsicle Finance was supposed to launch like a
Mhm.
just-in-time liquidity something situation where there
Right.
would be no idle. They would provide liquidity, get the fees, and then just completely just like withdraw right after. So I don't know what happened to that, but that would have been super, super cool and definitely would have seen lots of TVL there. But I don't know what happened there.
yeah. Um, all right. I guess does anybody have some other thoughts on just like activities on chain and in DeFi? Like anybody like anything that's really caught your eye, anything new, anything you don't think people are talking about or should pay more attention to?
Llama. What about Llama?
Llama. What's Llama? I mean, like, oh yeah,
Llama
Oh,
they get into
the
Llama.
stablecoin.
But yeah. So this is completely like arbitrary. I
Speculate,
don't
speculate.
yeah, I'm a speculator. I don't like there's no way Curve is gonna create a stable coin that's directly competing with all the stable coins on it. Like they're the AMM for all the stable coins. So I kind of think of it as LLAMA, LLAMMA stands for liquidity lending automated market maker algorithm. In which people can lock up their LP tokens and provide them to like a Curve protocol and liquidity, and they'll earn like they'll earn interest. And basically, Curve with that protocol and liquidity, other protocols that are looking for borrow liquidity will, I don't know, use like Curve, VLCVX, and V Curve to vote to direct that liquidity for a given round, uh, for so they can have more liquidity for that given round. And the people that provide the liquidity are basically paying the price for locking for that round, that epoch, and they're gaining an extra yield. And actually, the protocols are gaining more liquidity for that set round, and it just creates that whole system. And why I think this is because Curve emissions and convex emissions are decreasing by 15%. They will continue to decrease annually by 15%. And while they do have up to 300 years of emissions, it will slow down and it will become harder to incentivize pools. So I'm kind of thinking, hey, why don't we create another? There's probably another system that doesn't compete with these stable coins, and it does incentivize protocols to build TVL, and it just gives protocols an extra boost in liquidity for a set round so create better UX for that protocol.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's just kind of my speculator thoughts.
I gotta look into Llama more. There's just so much.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean, it's just the curve. It's just the curve USD that everyone talks about, right? Like that. I don't know. I always felt like if Curve had their own Curve stablecoin and they are known as the stable AMM, it just feels a lot of self dealing to me.
It makes
Yeah.
sense for them
You
to.
know, have
I feel like it makes sense for them to have a stable
yeah,
coin. Like they have all that TVL there, like over collateralized, over
Yeah.
collat. Oh, that's a quote once.
Or
Over
collab.
collat.
yeah, but yeah. So it's like I feel like if they were to allow for you to borrow against your Curve LP tokens,
Right.
I mean that I think the most obvious like utilization of the Curve stablecoin, and then now with that though, does that become the new base pair with anything, and does that compete with the Frax, BP, or do they, symbiotically and harmoniously live together?
I don't know. Based on my speculator thoughts, I think of it as like a sustainable tokamak, you could say. Provide liquidity for pairs that uh bribe or whatever and vote, and then they'll be getting that extra liquidity for that set amount of time. So I don't really think that there'll be like an extra, because like you think about it, everyone was like, oh, we could collateralize our CVX curve and borrow, the curve stable coin, but like that'll be super capital efficient. I can only see like a 30 to 35 LTV on that. And what about liquidations? That kind of would suck for Peg.
Yep.
So I guess, but the main thing is like having whitelisted collateral and not like, having collateral like high risk assets, just like not as tested stables, you could say, just like whitelisted by the curve now. So I really don't know. I'm speculating, but I imagine it wouldn't be a direct competitor of anyone. It'll be its own separate entity that will combat the decreasing emissions by providing extra liquidity for smaller stable coins that are up and coming that want to gain liquidity. I don't know. That's just my speculative thoughts.
Interesting. Well, I think we're well over an hour. I don't even know how long this interview was, but it's been
shit.
yeah,
Yeah, dude.
it's been like
that blew
really.
away.
It's also been like super dense, like really deep
Oh yeah,
deep
I'm
on the
sorry.
chain. No. We love this shit. Like this is what we live for. But we are definitely
Yeah.
coming to a close, and we like to end
Yep.
every interview with like a little bit of rapid fire questions of things that are both that have to do with your experience in crypto and also things that are off chain. So to ask the first questions of our Flywheel rapid round. When was the first time you've touched the chain? When was the first time you interacted with the blockchain and took your funds off of Coinbase or off of any centralized exchange and interacted with the chain?
November 2021.
Wow.
Wow.
What did you do?
Recent memory.
Did you
It was
did you aim
and
into
was
an own
actually
port?
to go into
Oh,
Wonderland.
I call it
Yeah, there you go.
into Wonderland.
Wonderland. Yeah. It's all about the Ponzi.
And then what do you like to do like offline? What hobbies, interests?
So I compete in powerlifting
Hell yeah.
for a couple years. Yeah. um
I-
I transitioned to be a bodybuilder, so now I've started bodybuilding the past couple of years. Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of
I
like
think there's
just play
this trend of stable chads that could, whether it's Sam was a powerlifter in college. I mean, I would always go to the gym. Me and Sam used to live together when we lived together. And just like people just like that in their stable coins, like just like to like lift heavy weights.
Oh yeah.
When'd you start lifting, Barry?
I was maybe 14.
14? Okay, cool. I was,
Wow.
Yeah.
I was 13 when I started lifting.
Yeah. I'm like super light. I'm like 5'6". I'm maybe like 155 pounds now. But like when I started, like I competed in powerlifting in like the really low weight, like 123-pound weight class, I think.
Mhm.
I deadlifted 370. So
Wow.
I'm a good deadlifter, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of adventure.
Wow.
Talk about dense.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I'm just laughing because like in my head I'm seeing a Venn diagram of like fractimalists and power weightlifters, and the overlap is getting larger and larger.
It's true,
and larger.
yeah.
I think that's gonna come as a
Yeah,
prerequisite.
we need
now
to
to be
do like a
fractimalist.
Frax. We need a Frax lifting competition somewhere. Could you imagine?
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I tag Sam.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Or Frax like lifting group.
Yeah.
One of our merch should be
Next
just a
meetup.
Frax dumbbell.
Oh,
This is a Frax
I definitely buy
dumbbell.
yeah. The weight of DeFi on our shoulders.
that.
Yeah, that's too good. That's too
You're
good.
like
Well,
your next
well,
Frax
Barry,
meetup.
yeah. Well, that's it on our end. Thanks so much for hopping onto the Flywheel pod, man. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
gonna have to do it.
Thank you so much for
We're gonna have to
having
do
me.
an episode with you and Haim at some point, or you and like Charlie at some point. Imagine
yeah.
if we get both of them on. Like that'd be some episode.
Mm,
But Barry,
chef's
we
kiss.
really appreciate your time. I can't wait to have you back on.
For
and
sure. Thank you
we'll
so
see
much.
you on the chain.
Yeah. See you
See
around.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
Well, That was a really cool episode. I really enjoyed how we got into the weeds of it all, how deep we got into the conversation, even about the nuances about yield on chain, about differences in AMMs, about differences in like Frax strategy and commentary on it. So like that was a really good discussion, solid DeFi discussion. What do you think, Kit?
Yeah, I would have to agree. Normally when we have guests on, I try to ask some difficult questions and, really drill down and double click on them, even though they try to not answer it. And I think Barry kind of held his ground, and he was able to deliver and answer some of these harder questions that a lot of people whom I've asked are just kind of dancing around it,
Yeah, usually
So
people are deer in the headlights, but Barry did a good job of like going heads on, answering the tough questions, and definitely has a bright future ahead of him.
yeah, man, the man
Yeah,
did his homework. That's all I can
the
say.
man did his
I,
homework.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to have him back on again.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Well, I hope the audience got to learn a ton from Barry and get inspired that, hey, it doesn't matter when you kind of jump into crypto. It matters that you do so with both feet. Dive right in and commit, and you'll be very surprised about how far it gets you.
yeah. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or 88. The chain does not have any bias.
As
And
long as you can
then,
click your ledgers.
as long as you can click buttons. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Telegram at Flywheelpod. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at DeFiDave22.
You can find me at 0x_K.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.